Welcome to the X Factor podcast. I'm the host, your host, Charles Epstein. I am joined by my intermittent rotating co-host, the august Mr. Michael Piker, straight out of Tokyo. Hey, Michael.
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, good. How's Tokyo these days? We have a what? What are we? A 13-hour difference? I'm down here in South Florida.
Yeah, exactly. 13. It's getting muggy here, moving into summer. Uh,
Ah, well, down
getting
here
hit
in
by
South.
tariffs like all the other countries,
Yeah.
trying to deal with that.
Yes. Well, as you know, down here in South Florida, you say muggy. I see that, and I raise you at least three. Um, anyway, today's mystery guest, I'm gonna leave the honors to you to reveal the identity of. Well, I guess it's not so much a mystery guest because there he is, and his name is right there. But maybe you could introduce him, Michael.
Indeed. Yeah. So Guillermo and I have known each other several years, esteemed background and my similar profession. So we wanted to give a chance. Guillermo, perhaps you might take a chance to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon here from Madrid. We are 6 hours ahead of you, Charles.
6 hours.
Yes. So, Guillermo Miranda, let me start with a confession. I am a lawyer. I work shortly
By the
as
way,
a
is that a
lawyer.
play on words? Guillermo Miranda confession. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Miranda.
So, a lawyer turned into talent executive and then turned into AI founder.
Is that an upgrade or is that a horizontal move? How would you characterize that?
I will say it's a bumpy road with very nice heights and some valleys in the middle. Absolutely.
Fair enough.
We started the pre-recording with a contest of how many cities we have lived. So, Michael, I live here and work in 10 different cities, 4 different continents. Lima, Caracas, Miami, New York, Vienna, Zurich, Washington, D.C., Nairobi, Dubai, and London.
Michael,
Impressive.
your turn.
Well, I'm 9 countries, 35 cities, and moved 36 times. So probably a longer list, but impressive.
You know what? I don't know. We're gonna have to ask the judges on this one. I'm gonna ask you guys, objectively speaking, which is more impressive.
Well, I'm more impressed by Guillermo just because continent-wise, I think you've hit pretty much all the continents, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Missing Australia, Oceania.
Yeah, same. But I think you've done more than I have, so that's probably more impressive, I would say, Charles.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to have this on record. I appreciate that. And I'm glad this little contest has not caused any friction between two colleagues and good friends.
No. The
Never let
biggest
a
challenge
podcast.
are the cultural adaptation, guys. The biggest
Yes,
challenge
never let
how you
a
adapt to a
podcast
different culture.
Yes, never let a podcast get in the middle of a relationship, a friendship, anything like that. I think that would be a bad policy. So thanks so much for joining us. Really do appreciate you taking the time and having this conversation with us. What actually drew you? Were you born and bred in Madrid, Spain? Where?
No,
what was your country?
I am actually Peruvian. I was
Peruvian.
born and raised in Lima, Peru. But I came here to Spain for my MBA. So I graduated as a lawyer. I worked for a couple of years as a lawyer. And then I came here to the Basque Country, to the north, and I did my MBA in Deusto, the Jesuit university in the Basque Country. And then I fell in love with the north of Spain. So we always wanted as a family to eventually move here as a base. And because of the school of the kids, Madrid is the right solution at this point.
Okay, but you've since obviously done quite a bit of traveling for your work, and I'm assuming you've also lived in some of those countries. Was that by happenstance? Is it inertia, by design? Did you always love travel? How did this come about?
Well, I was always curious as a kid. I will always volunteer to go on excursions. I will always volunteer to go to learn something different. And then basically IBM was the ramp into the global world. I worked for IBM for 20 years, 10 World Bank 3, another 10 with IBM. And I just explore the world, have different cultures, live in different environments, and we love it. It's a way to get a new job every 2 years, even if you are in the same company.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I know Michael wanted to ask several questions about that.
Yeah. Yeah, building on that, fantastic background, Guillermo. I actually grew up in Westchester County, New York, and IBM was just in my backyard with Washington Research Center. And if I remember correctly, Dan Gerson I've met, who was the former CHRO. I think you
Yep.
had Jeannie, Sam, and Lou over the years as CEOs, very iconic. But
Yes.
if I remember correctly, so you pivoted as a company, putting back on your IBM hat, my friend, from mainframe to, I think, if you think about the existential changes to cloud to service to Watson, what was it really like as an HR guy going through that devolution, if you will, from mainframe to, if you will, the latest with Watson? Huge change, right?
Yes. I think it was IBM has been always close to the intersection of business and technology. So the moment that the business evolves, the technology needs to evolve. So IBM invented corporate technology with the mainframes, really. Then they lost the PC era. They came back with the services era under Palmisano. And it was a big shift under Gini on Watson and artificial intelligence. And now under Arvin, there is another big shift to software as a service, as a focus with a consulting arm. Uh, Being sitting on the HR talent management role, what you see is a rapid evolving landscape of new skills, new locations, uh, new characters that you need to deal with. And I remember vividly when we were opening Eastern Europe, one of the big surprises for the software guys is that to hire a really good, deep knowledge software engineer in Moscow in the 2004, 6, it was $500,000 a piece. So everybody was, oh no, well, the others are paying this. What do you do? and you need to evolve with that. And same when we opened the operation in Africa with Watson,
Hmm.
having research scientists back in Nairobi was also a big cultural investment, a big resource investment. So managing the people equation on these business shifts requires this agility of the right talent at the right place at the right cost with the right skills every time. And it's at IBM, at least what I experienced under first Randy McDonald, then Diane Gerson, and now under Nickel, what I have seen is an HR team that is always very close to the business. Um, Later in my career, when I opened up to see more different industries, I became also the chief learning officer at Boeing between 2020 and 2022. I saw that not necessarily that was the standard in all the industries. When you know what you know, you assume things, but definitely it was not the business standard that HR was so close to what is happening in the business. So it was quite a ride, learning a lot, growing a family in the process. Luciana was born in Vienna, Rodrigo was born in Washington, Tiago moved with few months into Nairobi. So it was also a very interesting personal experience.
What a great
Right.
way to grow up. I'm assuming they're all multilingual.
Yes, but because by the way, we decided to put them in the German system. So they speak German, English, Spanish,
Really?
French, and Luciana speaks Latin because of the German influence.
Yeah, that's amazing. By the way, I just want to quickly establish my IBM bona fides. I used to do some consulting work up in Armonk with some former
Huh?
IBM engineers, and down here in Boca, they used to have a huge IBM campus that
Yes, I remember
closed
that.
about, I don't know, 20 years or so ago. But it's interesting because anytime you have that, You're going to have some real entrepreneurial activity. Citrix sort of formed out of that sort of soup, and I'm sure other companies have as well. Sticking with your IBM experience, so in 2014, you began a second stint as IBM's Chief Learning Officer. So what I'd like to know, and you also mentioned that you had another stint subsequent to that, also as a learning officer. What's the one thing you learned about learning that applies to the AI work you're doing today?
The most
by
important.
the way, it could be two things.
Okay, but I think that the most important.
We're feeling generous here at AIX today.
Thank you, thank you very much for the
Take advantage of it while the spirit's
I will.
there.
So let's start
Okay.
with the main one. The main one is the ability to unlearn. I think that's the most difficult part of learning. Unlearn so you can learn more and learn differently. And I think that's the piece that is so important.
How do you unlearn? Is because at some point it almost sounds like you're talking about something that's in muscle memory, and you have to. That's a very. I mean, I'm thinking immediately of I play tennis, and I haven't played in about 6 months because I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and I sort of kiddingly say to all the guys that I'm getting better the longer I don't play, and there's actually some truth to that. Right? Because I'm sort of unlearning some of my bad habits and I'm watching videos, of course, probably getting just a little bit more confused in the process. So I'm curious, how are there any fundamental precepts for unlearning something?
Yes, and let's go back to the tennis. You remember McEnroe, right?
I'm sorry?
So McEnroe.
McEnroe.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, McEnroe. So he has to unlearn all the tricks with rackets that were not fiber. Because he grew up in a era that the rackets were not yet general fiber availability. So he learned to play tennis with a good and play good, the old fashioned. And then the new rackets emerge and he has to learn everything again. So it's a matter of habit, how you unlearn hands-on. And that's the trick that I learned with IBM. And this is why probably without having any background in learning, because as I said, I am a lawyer, talent management, I never did learning and I became the chief learning officer. Why? Because my previous role at IBM was the CHRO of IBM Digital. And IBM Digital at that point was the leading edge of the Watson, the digital sales, digital marketing ecosystem, a new way to operate. So all the things that I have in a store from the corporate functions were not useless, but were not what we needed. So I have to, as the CHRO of IBM Digital Group, I have to reinvent things, starting with basic things like learning. So one afternoon, I was very nicely sitting in my room, in a conference room in Armonk, and I got a call from Diane's assistant, the CHRO, and he said, "Hey, Diane wants to see you 5 minutes." So you run upstairs, the third floor. I got there, and Diane said, "Hey, I have a new thing for you." What? I want you to be the chief learning officer. Why? Because I know what you are doing. You are changing everything. You are not using the corporate resources. And I said, well, you told me not to use it. Yes, I know, but we are creating the future. And that's how I got into learning, with a digital mentality, to emphasize hands-on, let go this old vision of academia, the corporate universities where the chief learning officer was almost a dean that orchestrated classes and instructors, into a digital platform world. And my pride as a chief learning officer of IBM, I have to say, is when I started, 6 out of 10 IBMers say that they have the skills that they need for the future. 2 years later, it was 9.5 out of 10 that say, yes, I have the skills for the future and the reinvention that is coming.
Yeah, and kudos to
all
the
of
person
that
who,
with less expenses, by the way.
Right. And kudos to the person who saw that in you.
Yes,
that
there is
you make
always
that
that
transition.
somebody that triggers that opportunity.
Yes, and the good thing is that coming from that side of the house to the other, you didn't have anything to unlearn yourself.
Yes, yes. The learning people was really fascinated with my lack of knowledge. And what is the evaluation framework
That's the
that
way
you
to
will
put it.
use? And he
Yes.
said, we are not using evaluation frameworks. We are going to manage a platform, so get all the user stats from digital. Oh, but there is a very good study from Stanford that says that the latest evaluation framework should consider, and then I have to repeat myself. We are not doing evaluation frameworks. We are going to get user experience as our North Star for whatever we do.
Yeah.
Big
Makes a lot of sense.
catastrophe for the traditional way to do things.
Michael?
Yeah, question. It's a great story, by the way. Diane, I met twice, and she's very, very, very impressive as a ex-CPO. AI, I know you know this, gets a ton of hype, and it's either black or white, right? So some might say it's this big kahuna of an existential threat, right? Or it's going to change the world, or it hallucinates, all the above. Where do you kind of sit on that continuum from black and white to actually maybe it's a good thing? Where's your brain sit around that really crucial question?
So I think that my brain, as I said, I evolved from lawyer, talent executive, chief learning officer, and now I am a founder of an AI startup in London. So I am sitting on the side of this is a general purpose technology that will again reinvent all the business and monetization levers that we have seen before. That will have impact in society, that will have impact in business, that will have impact in your personal life as a consumer. And it will depend on how we focus the adoption. There is a lot of unknowns, but what we have seen so far is a technology that is able to do things that are consistently okay to help to augment human capacity. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, it may have some bad actors, of course. Um, when you started with internet, that was exactly the moment that you have the internet scammers and people lost money because there was somebody that was uh, smart enough to get you into a confusion or do a click with your credit card in the wrong place. There are going to be the AI scammers, for sure. This is part of who we are as human beings. But there is a big part of upside that as a society we need to learn how to embrace. And it happens before, yes. Probably the big difference is the speed. The changes that we are seeing consistently are much faster. And I think that people will react on the frameworks that are created to react. And it's our responsibility as society, as business, to create the right frameworks for the people to react, to adapt, to embrace, and to take advantage of those. I don't see catastrophic scenarios. I think that those are part of the spectrum of things that you can expect. I don't see also a slow, progressive, nicely managed adoption. No. So both things are not going to
It's
happen.
like this. Yeah.
Yes, it's gonna be fragmented. It's gonna be at some point relatively chaotic. It's gonna have breakthroughs. So it's gonna be leapfrog. It's not a continuous.
Hmm.
You are going to see leapfrogs, and definitely you are going to create a new set of winners in society and in business because the traditional companies that they are business models and monetization are not AI core at the beginning are going to will need to evolve, and there are going to be new players for sure. Make sense?
Yeah. It's interesting, the AI conversation, I think a lot of people automatically the mind goes to generative AI, the chat GPTs and the Claudes, et cetera, et cetera. And, the fact is that AI is not quite ubiquitous, but eventually it's probably going to be a bit ubiquitous. It's going to be in just about, everything. So, and another of our rotating co-hosts, and I think you know him, David Foote, who is a technology compensation analyst. And he long has said that all companies, even if it doesn't appear so, are technology companies because everybody relies on technology. And I think the same at some point will be said about all companies are AI companies. I think learning and literacy go hand in glove. So, what is your definition of AI literacy, particularly as it relates to how people should be thinking about AI? What do they need to know to become literate? I'm curious. That's I've asked this in previous conversations, and different people have different definitions.
You want to try first, Michael? Should I go ahead?
No, you go, my friend.
Okay. So I think that AI literacy starts with the basic fundamentals to understand what is AI, how it's intended to work, and what is behind. Because the moment that you believe that this is a completely black box that just generates magic, then you don't know how to use it. Okay. So the basic fundamental things is to understand this is narrow AI, this is generative AI, this is general AI, that we are not there yet. We may get, but it will have a journey. So there is a lot of narrow AI cases that have been present for years. So let's start with the very basic things that we have done for the last 50 years, which is travel, in airplanes travel. The very first reservation system that was automated has a basic algorithm to identify open seats in a plane. And that's the system that American Airlines and other companies use as of today. The big innovation was the Spanish-based company Amadeus that created a competition from Europe that has a little bit of a modern, not mainframe dependent system. But narrow AI has been with us for many long times. The moment that you do a formula in Excel on a spreadsheet with a lookup, that is narrow AI already. So it depends on that. Then generative AI actually has the capacity to create new things based on what you have before. And understanding that is very important because there are two factors in this. One is generative AI is based on what exists. Okay, it will not create fluffy from completely new things because it's based on the precedent. And second, you need a human being to prompt the machine, to prompt the engine, AI engine, to create things. The better you have the data from before organized, the better you do the prompts to extract new things, the better use that you will have for AI.
Let me ask you. I'm sorry, Guillermo. I don't.
No, go ahead.
Let me ask you another question related. A previous guest talked about how the definition changes depending on their perspective, their role in the organization. So the CFO, AI literacy may mean something different, CFO as it does to the CHRO. Obviously, a lot of our audience are HR people. So to the extent that you agree that AI means different things to different people in the organization, what is AI literacy to an HR person?
Well, if you are grounded in the HR function, AI literacy means understanding how this will change your workflows and how it will affect your users, which are employees or extended workforce. More and more in HR, we manage employees and extended workforce. By the way, that extended workforce will include digital workers, meaning AI agents in the future. So you will have an extended space to manage. So how this will affect and how you have to put the guardrails, the basic guardrails of trust, explainability, transparency. That's part of who, as an HR person, have the basis of understanding AI and how it will help. Okay, there is a rush for productivity. That's a first thing that everybody's trying, iterating. There is a very clear rush for productivity. We have seen that. By the way, the CEO of IBM was on record a few weeks ago saying, yes, we have changed many of the HR professionals in IBM because we have Watson that is doing many of the administrative things as HR powered by Watson. So you have proof that this is happening, but then the most important thing is not that rush to productivity. The most important thing is going to be the deeper understanding of the rush for value creation. And what I mean by that is not to do the current things faster and cheaper, which is somehow productivity, is to do new things that will create better outcomes for your users, for your clients, based on new ways to execute that the technology will allow you to do. Okay, so start with the basics of how you do delivery, food delivery. Okay, food delivery started many years ago, and basically started with a phone call. Please, 2 chickens and French fries. This is my address. Somebody will take note, go to the kitchen, get the chickens, get to a driver or a motorbike and say, hey, this is it. And then that goes with a little slip to pass a credit card or an envelope for the money to come. That was the delivery, food delivery a few years ago. Okay, now you can do everything with an app. And then, so you reduce friction in the process. You do this faster. You don't need a call taker. You don't need a payment exercise. You still need the physical transportation and still need the produce to produce the food itself, right? So the same will happen with many processes. The technology will allow you to reimagine how the whole workflow works and what is the right outcome. And I think that's what is going to create the biggest opportunity and probably the biggest challenge. Because on the rush to productivity, yes, there are going to be jobs affected, reinvented, but in the rush to value creation, what is going to be is complete reimagination of corporate functions and how they work.
Yeah. By the way, just a quick aside, a little while back, I spent a couple of weeks in London and Paris, and I got by entirely on Apple Pay.
Yes. Yeah.
Entirely.
Yeah. Especially in those cities, which I know well. Exactly.
Yes, including the metro system. Well, in Paris, you have to buy the car. But you can use Apple Pay to buy the little...
To buy the car, yes, exactly.
To buy the car for the subway. But in London, you just go in with the Apple Pay in and out, and it automatically charges.
Yeah, it was great. Yes. It was great. Seamless. Yeah. Michael?
So pivoting to an area I know you've probably been asked 1,000 times. Sam Altman and Elon Musk, I think, are asked this every day, every minute. What do you think are truly the biggest barriers to AI adoption? People are scared. They're worried about hallucination, deception, right? They're worried about data privacy. So what do you fundamentally think that inhibits people to adopt AI in their daily life? What is that thing, that emotional thing, do you think?
Yeah, it's an emotional thing that becomes a mindset. Okay, so there is a mindset on how to face new situations, and this is a human trait. And I am part of the science board of Better App, and we did a study with the Stanford University. And basically, after interviewing, getting the facts of users, thousands of users, it was very clear that there were 2 types of mindsets: the pilots and the passengers. So the pilots will take control of the opportunity and steer the plane with the risk and with the mindset of learning something new, but will drive forward. the passengers will be sitting behind, afraid, not knowing, waiting for see how this evolves. Okay, and that is the biggest challenge. By the way, that study beginning of 2000, mid 2004 said that in corporate environments, approximately 27% of the people has a pilot mindset, and the rest are passengers.
27%.
Yes. So what we need first is to managers to become pilots, because managers are the ones that elicit behavior in organizations. And we need to help people to get comfortable with a new reality that is coming. So to come back to your original question, what is the biggest barrier for adoption? Is mindset. Is mindset to be open to learn something new, to unlearn tricks and do things differently, and to take some risk, to fail and iterate, instead of being passively sitting behind and crossing your fingers. Oh, hopefully it doesn't crash. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Instead of taking control of what you can control.
I was actually going to ask you. I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
I'm intrigued because I just maybe go one little leg deeper, if I may. So I get the hypothesis, the Stanford study, pilot, da, 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 da. But can that pilot actually transpose that passenger to be an adopter, or do they have to independently find their own way, find their own GPS to adopt in a self way, or they need somebody to tell them to adopt it? How does that play out?
I think will be play out in two ways. One is there is going to be an inertia of forces, society, business, uh, that will push more people to experiment because there is no other option. And then there is going to be the personal decision to jump forward, but we need to enable that moment of jump forward. So let me give you a small anecdote. My mother is 84 this year, and she has moved very successfully from phone calls to video calls to TikTok, and now to in WhatsApp there is a new function to do short video messages. Okay, uh,
Yes.
how she was able to do that? Because first he has a little of a pilot mentality of being curious, but also because the people that she cares about, grandchildren, it's when you
Mm,
are a grandmother, you are no longer too much worried about your kids. Your kids are your kids. But the grandchildren are the ones that are creating the life for you, because the grandchildren use that. So she has a choice and say, oh no, I will not learn this. They will come to visit me, and I will enjoy
yes.
my grandchildren when they come. I cook for them, etc. Or say, I will meet them where they are and start sending messages to Octavio in Amsterdam, to Luciana in Madrid, to Rodrigo in London, and to Sophie and Fernanda next door, but with the way that they use. So there is this personal interest, and there is this
Yes.
willingness to fail. She failed. She failed several times because she started something and you get these funny messages. Oh, I lost the app. No, ma'am, you just close it and you are taking pictures on the other side of the camera. Oh, why it happened to me? I don't see you. I don't see you. I am here. Just go down and click here. Oh, okay, yes. So there is a process, and there is a component of personal willingness, and there is a component of social pressure to move people into being pilots. And you will have the grandmas that will start using AI to do things because socially, grandmas and grandpas, of course, that socially that is required for what they are interested, and they will have the iterative force to fail miserably, learn, fail, and invest in what makes sense for them
It's a
in
great
their
story.
personal environments. Same in
Great
the
anecdote.
organizations.
Thank you for sharing that. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I've never worked for IBM, and IBM, I think, is legendary for having a particular type of culture. And I wonder the idea of failure. I'm assuming really that also has to be expressed in culture. You need to be given implicitly, perhaps even explicitly, from an organizational standpoint, almost the grace to fail. Do you find that, in different organizations? I know a lot of your experiences with IBM, but obviously elsewhere. Are some companies more forthright and encouraging about taking chances and saying failure is actually ultimately a good thing if you fail in a mindful way?
Yes, good control failure is important in cultures, and tolerance to iteration is important in cultures. And the moment that you stop having that is the moment that you actually lose touch with the market and you are starting to lose the position. Um, I will argue, without being too controversial, that why IBM is no longer one of the Fantastic Seven, whatever is the new name, is because IBM lost the ability to fail and iterate. And they were too fixed on corporate results, grow, and IBM passed in 2010 to be the biggest IT company, technology company in the world.
I remember that.
$124 billion. At that time, Microsoft was 60. Google was non-existent almost, not less than a billion. To now, $60 billion compared with the mega hyperscalers behind, because there was too much of a rigidity and it was not accepted to fail so easily. Same happened with Boeing. In Boeing, there was a schedule was most important than security and quality. And then you have the 737 MAX crashes that a very nice run of profits just got stuck. And now Boeing is in the process of reinventing their culture again. So you are absolutely right. Companies that allow you a control environment to fail and to iterate tend to be the ones that get ahead. And the moment that the market and the results and the quarterly picture is more important than how you run your business, then you run into trouble.
But also with AI, just like we were talking about, AI literacy, it sort of depends on perspective. Failure, there may be different tolerances depending on the industry you're in. If you're in banking, it's going to be less. We also know that move fast and break things is not always a recipe for success. You mentioned Elon Musk. We've seen that pretty evidently with the Doge project. Not all things, could adhere to that kind of principle. So that's kind of interesting. But also sticking, by the way, we had several other questions teed up, but you've already anticipated them and answered several of them, if not all of them. But the last one is almost a whole other topic, and it's probably worth revisiting in a whole separate podcast. And it's this idea of maintaining human centricity in a world of AI augmented work, which is obviously, we've had many conversations about this. It's obviously a very important conversation. And I know you've had that conversation, you've written and thought about it. And you say that we're going to need to redefine and actually redesign work at a very fundamental level. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that now we are driven in very rigid process that are part of industrial era. We have optimized a lot how we fabricate something and we put it into the market, but basically are very much linear processes. The magic of digital allows you to have parallel processing. It's not sequential, you can open parallel. And now with the magic of AI, the speed of the parallel process can change radically. Okay. Now, behind all of this, there is a human trait that is extremely important that is called curiosity. The curiosity to look beyond. And let me give you another anecdote that is interesting. A very large bank decided to start using AI agents to capture fraud. And instead of having all these analysts searching for fraud threats, they put an agent. And what they found is that the agents fail to detect fraud the way that humans were able to detect it. Why? Because the machine has a precedent, the engine has a precedent, and tries to find that precedent periodically. Humans, we have curiosity, and we understand that there are funny patterns, that this is where fraud leaves behind. So the machine was not able to find these funny patterns, that this is where we sometimes you say, thought this is bad and you will be right. The machine thinks positively always. We don't think that way. We say, oh, no, this guy is trying to mislead us. I see that. But it's not mathematical. It's an instinct of the curiosity. So this large bank come back to their fraud analysts on the second layer, because they realize that the machines can put you the data very nicely staged, but you have to have this almost sentiment of there is something funny behind here that is not mathematical. It's not an algorithm. It's your instinct. And that human instinct that starts with curiosity is what makes the difference.
I wonder if another real challenge with AI, we talk about how fast, it's moving. So we're all of a sudden focused on the AI's capabilities right now. AI can't do this very, very well. We humans can do this, but at a certain point, maybe AI will be able to do that, and chances are it will be able to do that. So, it's almost like every conversation ends. I find a lot of these conversations we have in the podcast, well, let's revisit that in 6 months because things are going to change. Your perspective will probably have to change. I'm sure
Yes,
there's a question in there. There's a question in there
I think
somewhere.
perspectives will evolve. Perspective will evolve. But there are some fundamental values that we need to have clarity as a society that will be important to be anchored. And one fundamental value is that we use technology to enhance human beings. And that fundamental value is something that can be a very good North Star of how we use the power of the technology. And that goes beyond a technical decision or a business decision. That's more a little of a philosophical decision. And I think that's what needs to stay steady and guide us through this iteration, discovery. Because if we don't believe on that, then we will have more complicated philosophical questions that will just optimize returns, financial returns, without understanding what is behind and why we do all of this, right? So your stance may evolve, but your fundamental values of why we use technology are important. Let me give you one important thing that was discovered here in Spain about the Cro-Magnons. Apparently, the Neanderthals. The big difference why Neanderthals disappear and humans, the Homo sapiens, evolve, it was on their ability of relocation and curiosity to go through cycles of exploration. What with the last remain of the Neanderthals in Europe, what they found basically, and has been later confirmed with an article in Nature a few weeks ago, is that Neanderthals stay put, and that's what killed them. They started to reduce and shrink and shrink. Homo sapiens explored the next valley and explored the next valley and found a problem and were killed. And the second excursion went there to find that they killed their friends and they send more. So there is an spirit going forward versus the more philosophical view that they have with archaeological evidence that the Neanderthals basically stay put all the time. And they basically shrink and die in these small valleys, disconnected from the next valley that were another 10 Neanderthals, and the other valley not so far away that were 50. They never talked to each other. They never connected. So the Homo sapiens has this a spirit of exploration and iteration that is fundamental of who we are as a society.
By the way, I want to applaud you for bringing this conversation full circle, Guillermo. We've started talking about your travels, Michael's travels, working and living all around the world, and we come down to the essential difference between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens is their mobility.
Exactly.
So thank you very much. That was very deftly done.
Indeed.
By the way, when we talk about principles and we talk about change, what I'm hearing also is that organizations need to have, and I'm just going to put this in a certain way, non-negotiable principles. It's kind of interesting. I was working with a group, and a lot of their work is dependent on Medicaid funding. And these days, they really, in the way they put together their proposals for funding and so on and so forth, they really have to navigate. They got to thread needle just linguistically. There's language they have to avoid, and they have to position themselves in a certain way. But as I'm talking with them, I'm like, yes, but it's still important that you have non-negotiable principles. These are things that I don't care. This is what we're about, and whatever the political winds are, whatever the prevailing sentiment is, this is important. So I'm assuming kind of what we're talking about is that. And I think, a lot of companies, I think it's a lot of hand waving. They go through the exercise of doing these mission statements and capturing, their essential DNA, their essence. But again, they're really exercises. But what would those non-negotiable principles? If you're heading an organization, you're looking at all this change, and you want to be agile, you want to be adaptive, but also, you want to drop an anchor and say, these are non-negotiable principles. What would those be?
I think that these are the ethical principles of how you use technology. So that starts with trust, transparency, explainability, uh, how you use the data. So those things are core to how you have the foundations for the future, and those are not non-negotiable. You can do many things. You can look for a lot of innovation, but you have this principle of what we do needs to be explainable. We need to be able to see why this performance review is higher than this one, because the AI machine created a very nice algorithm that established, but it has to be fully explainable to the consequences of that action, of why this order was put forward and the other order in this textile company, because these are the trends. So, and the non-use the data, the privacy, and those principles are very important and foundational of who you are as a company.
Michael, any last thoughts, questions?
No, it's an inexorable debate between will AI drive humans or humans drive AI, and you know, your thrust of your argument of AI potentially making humans better humans. And I'm still mulling that where I am on that that pendulum between the two. I don't know if I have the answer, but it's something
Yeah,
I grapple with every day in my job.
I quipped in a previous podcast that, you may think you're done with AI, but AI is not done with you.
Exactly.
Yes, that's a good one.
Not, and a previous guest also had a great line. AI is not done creating problems, and he is really bullish on AI. And I think that's. By the way, we also have this segment we call Bag Check. We ask our guests, what your go-to AI tools are. You can play or not. If you like, you can share with our audience exactly what you rely on, what AI tools do you rely on in your daily work or life.
Go Michael, go myself. So look, I
Well, this is
have
actually Guillermo. This is for you.
me.
Michael, you're free
Okay.
to weigh in, but
So I
yeah,
would
Go.
say that there are 3-4 fundamental things. First, in terms of how you use AI in your daily life as an HR professional, I have to confess that I use Atlas Copilot. Atlas Copilot is the engine that we have created with my co-founders, and it helps me to deal with my day-to-day in terms related with the skills, with talent.
May I interject? We had your colleague Matt Burns on a previous podcast,
Oh,
and he gave us
yes.
access to it, and it is an amazingly powerful tool. So
Thank you. So I use that. I use ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT on my daily work as well. There are new functions that are coming. It's important. It gives you more of a view in the broader world.
have you discovered a new use in the last several weeks for ChatGPT?
Well, the new use is the deep search capability that they put forward few weeks ago. It helps you to give deeper perspective on things and have a reason. And then I started to use Gemini actually, and I am using Gemini more for reasoning. The engine of Gemini for reasoning, it works very, very good. And then I use the Grow tool from Better App as a coach, as a personal coach, and it helps me sometimes to deal with situations and day to day as a human being, as a corporate executive, etc.
Yeah, no, BetterUp is also an amazing platform. I saw, if memory serves, a survey put out by Harvard, I believe, talking about what the top 20 uses of AI are in 2024 and how that's changed in 2025. Last year, companionship was number 2. This year, it's number 1 with, I think, counseling or therapy, which is really interesting. I'm not sure exactly what's meant by companionship, because companionship could be a good thing. It could be an immensely creepy thing. In fact, I think on the very first podcast we did, Michael, I asked you, would you find it interesting or off-putting if you had a Michael GPT that was essentially your digital doppelganger? Would you find that interesting?
Digital twin.
Or incredibly creepy? I forget what you said. I think you said you find it interesting.
I did. I like the mirror in my face every minute, every second. I do. But Guillermo, my friend, for you? Same question. How would you react to that?
Oh, I think that it's important to have a voice in your head that is now digitally enabled. So I think that it can be helpful to see perspectives of you that you have not seen. So a digital twin may be helpful and maybe an option. And by the way, this study is Mark Sanders that was published in HBR. A good fellow from is relocated to Spain recently, Mark.
Yeah, you know what I would think would be also, here's something I think I could live with and maybe actually find very useful. Not so much an AI Charles doppelganger, but something that sort of, is a devil angel. Give me those two perspectives. That might be really helpful. Help me sort through some of these ethical dilemmas.
Absolutely. We will have a lot of that.
Agility.
I'm sorry?
Yes. Paradox agility. It's your GPS for paradoxes, right?
Yes, I like that.
Right? Yeah.
I like that. I should establish any great ideas that occur in the recording of these podcasts. I have at least 20% stake in. I just want to let you
know. Very good point.
That's the way it works.
With a royalty and a licensing. Okay,
yes,
I remember that.
Yes. You guys got to read
guy. I'm good with money, the rider. So I'll remember that.
Yes, always read the rider to these podcast agreements. Anyway, guys, Guillermo, thanks so much. Michael, as always,
most welcome.
Much appreciated.
Pleasure.
Thanks everybody.
Muchas gracias, amigo.
Thanks everybody for listening.